It's always amazing to me the wealth of talent we have in this organization, variety of interests that people have. And I was talking to my friend in my book one day, and I said, I got a bunch of birds in my backyard. I don't know heck they even are. So I can help you with that. I'll do a presentation. So today, talk about birds in my backyard.
Well, first of all, I want to know who this other Joe Fugel is that lives at Cave. There's the good-looking one apparently came to the board meeting, so I didn't know. Anyway, bear with me. I've been in school business for I think 43 years now, and I'm always surprised at how nervous I am when I get started doing this. You think that I would be over the stage right, so bear with me. I'll get my feet under me. But maybe you're like me and you'd like to be able to identify the trees that you see or the wildflowers, those kinds of things, and the birds too, and constellations in the sky. You know, I wish I knew more about all of those things. And so birds have always been a lifelong interest of mine, but my wife would tell you it's been a more recent obsession of mine. I really enjoy the incredible variety. Anybody have any idea how many species of birds there are in the world? Yeah, they estimate, well, they're not sure because there's some controversies about how to classify some of these birds. But there are over 10,000 species of birds. Now, in North America here, on one of my bird apps on my phone, there's 891. That's not even 10% of the birds in the world here. And in Missouri, there's a fraction of those. And we've lived at our property since 1986, and best I can tell, there have been about 54 of those birds in my yard. So that'll give you an idea. And this is serious now. I'm an advanced beginner. It frustrates me when I go out because I hear a bird song and I don't know. Trish said, "What's that?" Trisha's my wife. She said, "What's that?" I don't know. Of course, the default answer is mockingbird. That will always work. So anyway, the birds that you're likely to have in your yard. So we're not going to talk about wading birds or shorebirds or seagulls or any of those beautiful, colorful warblers that pass through in the spring and fall, and they're here for a week or so. They are really tough to ID, but they're fun to watch. They're really cool. So anyway, lot of variety, and let's get started. What I want you to know is the birds that you're very likely to see. We'll start with the common ones, and then some other ones that are probably there too that you might mistake for the common. For example, everybody knows what robins are and what they look like. Can we get some of these lights out? It's bad enough resolution here with all those wonderful windows, but I wanted to start with robins because they're so common, and also it tells the size right here. They're 10 inches. You know what a robin looks like. You know how big it is. So it'll be an easy comparison. And as we look at the other birds, if I say, "Oh, that's a robin-sized bird," well then you'll know, or if it's bigger or smaller than robins. Yeah, that's big. Well, what you may not know is robins, the males are different from the females. The males are much more colorful than the females. And the juveniles, the near adults, have this speckled breast, which complicates the identification of some other birds that may be. They're not really robins at all. Robins, there's a whole family of birds that are true robins. And this is the European robin. You'd see this bird in England. But because of they look a little bit alike, and that's how our bird got called a robin. But they don't forage, they don't have the same kind of habitat that true robins. So anyway, if you say the scientific name of this bird to yourself, you'll get some idea of what I think of these birds. Right? And anytime I'm cleaning off, scrubbing the patio furniture so somebody can sit down safely, my sidewalk out front, we got a big sugar maple out front, and it looks like a Jackson Pollock painting. I swear it does. So they're everywhere, and they're really, really nasty. So anyway, we birders call these trash birds because they're so common, and this is really trash. But anyway, now you may see this bird. You know how robins feed. You know, they run across the ground and feed under bushes, scratch around in the leaf litter, and that kind of thing. And this may well be in your yard as well. It's a brown thrasher. It's even bigger than a robin. We're talking 12, 13 inches. I saw one the other day in my yard, and I thought I had a roadrunner in my yard because they're running across the grass, and so much ambient light here, you really don't get a sense of the color. But you see the speckled breast and brown back, and you might think that it's a robin, and they feed in the same way that robins do. Now, this bird is even smaller than robins, and the hermit thrushes are a real pretty song. And they're also, you'll find them digging around in the leaf litter under your azalea bushes. And you think, oh, it's a robin. Well, give it a second look, because it may very well be a hermit thrush. And robins are thrushes. They're in that same family. You may have heard of a brown thrush, which a lot of folks get confused with a brown thrasher. I don't know who names these birds. I have no idea. But brown thrush is a misnomer. This is the real name is wood thrush. They are treetop dwellers, and they have this gorgeous, gorgeous song. And I'm sure you've heard this song. I've got it on my phone. I'll play it for you after the meeting if you'd like to hear it. But you can see these birds are really similar in appearance. About the only way you can tell them apart is where you'd see them, because the wood thrushes are treetop dwellers, whereas the hermit thrushes are going to be on the ground. All right, this bird. If you know what it is, go ahead and say it. Yes, you can help me out here. Starlings. Yeah, they're everywhere. This may be the Athean equivalent of pornography. That is, no socially redeeming value. They're everywhere. They do have a sweet little song. If you see, there'll be dozens of them on the highlight marks behind my house. And, what is that? And you look up and it's a starling. But they're cavity dwellers. And the problem with the starlings is there's so many of them. They have no predators, no natural predators, so they're just everywhere. And because they're cavity dwellers, they evict or otherwise take over the homes of more desirable birds like bluebirds, chickadees, and so on. Now, this is the juvenile. You may have never seen a juvenile or didn't recognize it. And they're actually pretty birds. And it's the ugly duckling story in reverse here, because you have a rather attractive bird that goes up and looks like that. And nothing attractive about the story. This handsome fellow, you know what this is? It's a common grackle, and they are really common. I'll have 40, 50 of these things swarm a feeder in the winter. Yeah, I mean, they're just huge flocks. And those enormous flocks of black birds, and that's two words, black birds, because then there's blackbirds, one word, and that's a species of bird. But anyway, these guys they're everywhere. And big birds, 12, 13 inches, noticeably bigger than robins, easy to identify. And they're really, really pretty when you look at them. Shiny black plumage with iridescence, and when they get it, you see them in the sunlight. They really are pretty birds. They have spooky yellow eyes. Really nice bird. This is the female, and we're going to see this over and over again. She's very drab in color, just a plain brown bird, and that's nature's way of hiding her in the bushes on the nest. And we got some big boxwoods in our yard, and I know there's a grackle nest in there, and I went looking to find it, and I couldn't find it, even though I knew it was there. It's so well camouflaged. So if you see this giant sparrow at your feeder, it's 3 times as big as any other brown birds there. Well, you probably got a female brown. This isn't a grackle, even though it looks like one. It's half the size of the grackle. It's about a robin-sized bird. For comparison purposes, there's a common grackle beside it. These are really, really common black birds, and it is also a blackbird. Brewer's blackbirds is the name of the species. I know you've seen these, and you probably just didn't know what it was. There were some in my yard this morning as I was heading out to work. So, Brewer's blackbirds. No, I'm standing in the wrong place. So you're looking out at this flock of blackbirds, and you see this funky looking thing. Well, this is the winter plumage of a rusty blackbird. And they're here, but they're here in the winter. They breed, this is the breeding plumage of rusty blackbird, and they're more likely to, they breed way north, Canada. I saw one in Chicago in April, and the reason I know it was a rusty blackbird is because I was in Chicago and I wasn't in Cape Girardeau. And otherwise, that's, I don't know how you know those two birds. This is a handsome fellow. This is the first bird I ever asked about. I was just a toddler. I couldn't have been any more than 4 or 5 years old, standing up in the front seat of the car, heading out to my grandmother's house with my mother. I inherited my interest in birds from her, I think. And we were on one of those gravel roads out there in Stoddard County, and I saw this gorgeous bird standing on a cattail in the roadside ditch, and I asked my mother, "What's that bird?" I can remember this just as clearly, and she told me its name, and I've been interested in them ever since. Also, red-winged blackbirds bring back memories of fishing with my dad in the summer. So that's good. This is, red-winged blackbirds, aptly named. Many birds, I don't know how they got their name, but that name actually makes sense, helps you identify. This pretty bird is the female. And again, they'll come to your feeders. I had red-winged blackbirds at my feeders this winter for the very first time. And so they'll be there. And the females were there too. They look like giant sparrows. Brown birds, but they're pretty in their own right. They don't look anything at all like the males. This is a female rusty, and that's a female Brewers, and good luck telling those apart. That's for the intermediate and advanced beginner birders, not an advanced beginner like me. No, if you see these are robin-sized birds. If you see them at your feeders in the winter, then get your guide out and figure out which one it is. But you can pretty well depend it's one of those three. All right. This is a little black bird. Is a kind of a combination of what we saw before. Anybody ever heard of cowbirds? I had a couple of dozen of these at a time at my feeders this past winter. And that's a male. The females are, again, these nondescript little brown birds, that are robin-sized bird. All right, so it's not, you'll know it's not a sparrow when you see it. They're here, and just be on the lookout for them. And especially if you put out feeders like I did, they'll come to your feeders in the winter. The thing about cowbirds is they don't build their own nests. They lay their eggs in the nests of other birds. And this is a picture I found on the internet of a cardinal. I'm sorry, I wish you could see it better. It's a cardinal feeding this what looks like a giant sparrow, and it's a cowbird chick. And this must be a very successful strategy because, again, I had tens of cowbirds at my feeders. This best one. Cowbirds. Oh, one of my favorites. You know this bird. Very, very common. It's a mourning dove. And notice how that's spelled. That's on purpose. It's like bereavement, you know, that kind of mourning. And I suppose, don't you suppose it's from that song, that beautifully plaintive coo that they have? It's just so pleasant. I love these birds. They're tidy, they're friendly, they're clean little birds. Oh, they're not so little, but pretty good sized birds, 12, 13 inches. So we see them all the time. A lot of folks call them turtle doves. That's a misnomer because turtle dove is an English bird, but you can see how we could get that name. They're very similar. So, but they're not turtle doves. Turtle would be very, very, wow. It'd be amazing to have a turtle dove here in North America. Now, when you see that familiar profile on a wire, don't assume it's a mourning dove, because it could very easily be a Eurasian collared dove. These birds are here. They're not as common, of course. Mourning doves are everywhere. But look, give it a second look. And it's easy. It's an easy ID. You can tell that the wings are so different from the mourning doves. And don't just dismiss it as a dove. And it could also be a white-winged dove, another aptly named bird. These birds are here. They're just not as common. So again, when you see that bird on a wire, give it a second look. These birds are common enough in Missouri that the Department of Conservation has established both hunting seasons and limits on how many collared doves and how many white-winged doves a hunter can take. So they're that common. And and they're here. We had reports of a white-winged dove in the Cape Woods, you know, in the fitness trail. A very knowledgeable, much more knowledgeable birder than I. put it out that there was a highland dove. I haven't seen them. I saw the collared doves in Florida, and I know they're here. I hear reports of it. I just haven't seen them. You know this one? It's a mockingbird, very famous. They're famous for mimics. And as far as I know, there's not a southern mockingbird or an eastern mockingbird or a western mockingbird either. And when I think of mockingbirds, don't you think of Harper Lee and the Kill of the South? I think of the South when I think of these birds. But they have that in their name. I don't know why. Very famous, of course, as mimics. But if you think about it, it's really sad because mockingbirds don't have a song. And it occurred to me, I've never played on my phone app. I wonder what song they give for a mockingbird when they imitate birds all around. And they're amazing, amazing. There are other birds that are mimics too. Blue jays. You know what a blue jay is. They're also mimics. Again, you're looking out there and you think, well, that mockingbird there's something wrong with that mockingbird. What is that? Well, it's not a mockingbird at all. It's a catbird. And this is an aptly named bird too because of its song. It's not a song, it's a screech. And it sounds like a cat that's either looking to avoid a fight or to get in one. It's an amazing sound. And so I'll play it for you sometime if you'd like. You see it's got a little black cap and black eye. This is called a rust-colored fence, which I think is a nice name for that part of the bird. Anyway, so as you're looking, make sure it's a mockingbird. Mockingbirds flash a lot of white when they fly, and the catbirds don't. So that may help you decide. Oh, I hope you get to see this handsome fellow. This is an 11, 12-inch bird. This is a big bird. It's an eastern kingbird. And they're flycatchers. And they're here. I usually see them around water. So I see them walking the fitness trail along the creek there. But I also saw one just a couple of weeks ago on the property of the church we attend. It's Abbey Road Christian Church. It's up there on Abbey Road on the hill. And there's no water around there. So, now, these are flycatchers. They're only here in the summer. And imagine how many mosquitoes this bird has to eat to fuel that big body. So these are birds that you want in your yard because they're going to help control the insect population. Insectivores. Look at this. This is a scissor-tailed flycatcher, and they're here. There's a nesting pair. At least last month, there was a pair nesting just on the other side of Jackson. I can tell you where you can go see this bird if they're still here. The first time in Cape County we've ever had a record of a scissor-tailed flycatcher. But they're coming further, advancing their range farther north all the time. And there are reports of flycatcher scissor-tails up in Columbia, Jefferson City, in that area. So this is going to be a much more common occurrence. But again, it looks like a mockingbird, see? But look at this tail. And when I went over to see those birds at Jackson, I had the good fortune of the birds flew over a hill and then landed on a bare limb, both of them at the same time. And it is a sight you will never forget. Their wings spread out, and they use these enormous tail feathers as rudders to help stop them. It's an amazing, amazing sight. I was really borderline thrilled to see these birds. And they raised a clutch of nestlings over here. So, exciting stuff for us birders. Scissor-tailed flycatcher. Hope you get to see it again. You see a mockingbird, give it a second look. It might be any of these. Okay. Next three birds all have house in their names, and they're really, really common birds. This is a house sparrow. I guarantee there are some of these at your house. They're everywhere. It's a European import, and they don't have any natural predators. Little chippy little bird, chirping all the time. I think they chirp in their sleep. And the little female, she's really sweet. Just a nondescript little bird. But the males have a gray head, and this is the identifying characteristic, that black throat. So, if you want to try to separate the sparrows, which ones are which, well, house sparrows are really, really common. We could probably look out there, and there's a pair of them out there now. Now, this is a house finch. Famous for their red head. They also have a little red rump patch. And I've got 3 or 4 pairs of these that nest in the arborvitaes that we have on the north side of our property. And they're welcome in my yard. They're wonderful singers. They've just got these burbling, gurgling sound, and it's just melodious, fabulous song. And female, again, a little nondescript brown bird. And some of these really, the females sometimes really are hard to separate what they look like. Now, you see a house finch, you see that red head. It may, if it's got that red cast all over its body, it's probably a purple finch. I've never seen one that I know of. Someone described it as if the good Lord held that bird by the tail and dipped it in cranberry juice. And I think that description is apt. And the house finches primarily is just the male's head and that rump finch primarily, but the purple finches. And that's the female. And good luck telling those two birds. I'm not that good. All right. One of my all-time favorites. This is a house wren. Oh, these little guys. Little tiny, tiny birds. And I don't know how that much music, all of this wonderful music can come out such a little body. They're active little birds, and they just sing and sing and sing. Fussy, busy, little tiny birds. We have several wren houses that we established around a little tiny hole, you know, that only the wrens can get in. And I don't know how many broods of house wrens we have raised over the years. And they're, I said we raised them. I didn't have anything to do with it. But except for providing a home. And they're really, really fun little birds. And they're insectivores primarily. So again, they'll help control the mosquito population in the summer. All right, now, this one's also here. This is a Carolina wren. And someone described this as half a tennis ball with a tail. And again, I think that description is apt. A rust-colored bird. And I promise you, you've got some around your property. If you just be aware of them. They're famous for this. This is called an eyebrow, this creamy-colored eyebrow. And that's the distinguishing field mark in the overall rusty color. They're not even as big as the house wrens, little bitty tiny ones. Now, two more wrens that are very likely around. They're around here. Now, whether you can identify them in your yard or not is another thing. This is pronounced Buick, like the car. And it looks like the house wren, except it has the eyebrow of the Carolina. And it's bigger than a house wren. It's a sparrow-sized bird. And I had one in the cherry tree in our yard. And that house wren looks funny, just like I'm telling you. And then I heard it sing. And I knew it wasn't a house wren because its song is very, very different. It sounds like some of the other songbirds that we have. It's got a distinctive song, but I had to get it out on my phone to make sure I knew what I was talking about. This little guy looks like the Carolina wren. And if you see, again, this little brown wren, double check to see if it in fact is a Carolina. It probably is, but it might be a winter wren. And they're here year-round. I've never had a winter wren in my yard. I've seen them, but I've never had one in my yard. Little bitty tiny ball of a bird. A lot of fun to have. And again, they're all insectivores. So, well, in the winter they'll eat whatever they can find, but in the summer, insects probably. All right, you know this bird. Of course, it's a hummingbird. And I chose that picture because you'd think they're attracted to red, and they are, but they're attracted to nectar. That's what they're attracted to. I even had a hummingbird a couple of days ago feeding on one of the sunflowers that volunteered, you know, sprouted under the sunflower feeder. And I was surprised at that. But this is the male, and the female, ruby-throated. It's the only hummingbird that we have in Missouri. And one of my bird apps has 19 hummingbird species in the United States. And we get one. That doesn't seem quite fair. It's the only bird, the only species of bird that can fly backwards. And the female, of course, is nondescript. She's to hide among the foliage. Her nest, the nest is the size of a quarter. The eggs are the size of peas, green peas. I've never seen one, but I've seen pictures. It's really good. All right, you know this one. Come on, please tell me you know the name of this bird. It's a bluebird. And it's a blue bird, but it's also a bluebird. Yeah. And this species is eastern. Now, there are western bluebirds, and they don't look like this. They're all overall blue, sky blue, and then there's a mountain bluebird, too. But they're way west of here. This is our state bird, and there are 7 states in the United States that have bluebird as their state bird. No charge for that, I'll just throw it in extra. You know this one too, it's a blue jay, and blue jays are 12 in, they're big birds. And when they come to your, this is the boss. When they come to your feeder, the other birds leave. They defer to this guy. They're something, a little bit of a bully. And I guess that's why so many sports teams are named after this bird, is because they're so powerful, so strong. They'll clear everybody else out. And I hope you get to see this guy. It is a flash of blue. This is an indigo bunting. Again, we're talking a little bitty, tiny, sparrow-sized bird. But the males are brilliantly blue, all over blue. Fashion, wonderful birds to see. And they also have a really, really pretty song. And they're here. They're treetop dwellers. So, but you'll see them flashing. I've seen them on the wires. Again, when I walk the fitness trail, right when you get to Hopper Road, that bridge there at Hopper Road, I used to see one there almost every morning. And so be on the lookout for the indigo buntings. This is the female. Again, nondescript little brown bird, but she's got hints of blue on her tail and her bill and breast. Look at this one. This is a painted one. Now, they're not typically here. My range maps on my bird apps and in my books tell me that this bird shouldn't be here. But my birding buddies tell me they see them at Trail of Tears all the time. And when my wife and I go out there, we've never seen one, but they tell me that they see them all the time. One of my birding buddies lives out there, and they come. He swears they come to his feeders. So this is a spectacular. I got to see one in South Carolina, and they are unbelievably beautiful birds. Tremendous. Now, this one is very likely in your neighborhood. This is the same size. This is a grosbeak. And they're here all year long, and I've never had one in my yard. And it was a frustration. I tell my birdie buddies, I've never seen a grosbeak of any kind. And they said, really? Don't they come to your feeders? They don't come to my feeders. I must be holding my mouth wrong or something. I don't know what the deal is. But anyway, I finally got to see a blue grosbeak. To compare, again, you see a bluebird in your yard, don't assume it's a bluebird. Because look again, and if it has this bicolored bill and it's overall blue, well, it's either an indigo bunting or it's a blue grosbeak. Now, the grosbeaks are bluebird-sized birds, so they're bigger than sparrows. So they're noticeable in that respect. But there's the state bird. This is the female. And again, just this little brown bird. We're going to have a lot of little brown birds before we're done here. Now, this handsome fellow is a rose-breasted grosbeak, and they're here all year too. We saw some over at Horseshoe Lake. But again, people have them come to their feeders year-round, and I've never had one in my yard. But they are really, really pretty birds. Now, this is the female. And you would, without that green foliage in the background, you would swear this is a black and white photo. But the distinguishing characteristic here is the head, that big, white, silver bill. And these are big birds. These are cardinal-sized birds. So they're even bigger than so if you see that one, you'll probably know what it is. And they're here. They're here. Just be on the lookout. All right. Of course, you know this one too. Any baseball fans in the room know that this is a northern cardinal. And again, there are no southern cardinals or western cardinal. I don't know why they call it a northern cardinal. But there are other birds that are called cardinals. And anybody been to Hawaii? You been to Hawaii? Yeah. There are crested cardinals and yellow-billed cardinals over there. Really, really pretty birds. But this is the one that we don't have here. They're everywhere. All over North America you'll see these birds. But if you see this one and you think, oh, that doesn't look like a female cardinal. Well, it isn't. This bird has a funny name. It's a tufted titmouse. And the plural is titmice. Yeah. And they come to my feeders all the time. Pretty little birds. They have this rust coated on the flank and a almost buzzing sound when they sing. Very distinctive. But when you see that crest, don't assume that it's a cardinal, because it may well be a titmouse. And I hope you get to see these. These are spectacularly beautiful birds. Cedar waxwings. They're here year-round. They just travel in flocks. You'll see these swarm a mulberry tree, for example, and either exhaust the food supply or eat their fill and move on. But they are really, really pretty birds. That's from the back, and that's from the front. And they're famous for this these eye patches. They look like they're bandits, you know, that are getting ready to rob a bank. Cedar waxwing, really, really pretty birds. I've had them in my yard. It's great. And here we have some red birds, which of course are not red birds. I saw one of these just last night. So they're here. These are tanagers. And the top one is a summer tanager. He's more orange than he is, more orange side of red, whereas the scarlet tanager is more on the red side of red. Got a lot of black in that pigment. These are really, really pretty birds. Robin-sized birds, and their songs are similar to robins. Both of these birds sound an awful lot. I can't tell them apart anyway. And if you hear that robin song, that robin song, check it out. You may be hearing a tanager. The problem with them is they're treetop dwellers. And so the one I saw last night was in the top of a dead tree. And that's always helpful. When you've got a brilliantly red bird, it was so far away I couldn't tell which one it is. The scarlet has the black wings. I don't know which one it was, but I know it was a tanager. So they're here, and you can see them. You're on the lookout for them. Their females are this drab olive green. And we're going to see a whole bunch of birds this morning or this afternoon that look like that. Females, again, this size bird are really hard to tell apart. You know this one? It's a goldfinch. Yes, it is. And it's an American goldfinch. There are other species of goldfinches, and this is called American goldfinch. And that's one feeding on the coneflowers that my wife and I planted. Well, she planted them. Well, actually, I dug the hole. Right? She planted them. And but you can see the bird there. And we planted them. We like the flowers, but the main reason we have them is because it attracts the finches. They love feeding on those seed heads. I had one just this week. I was in several out there this week. They're really pretty. That's the male. Female looks like this. She's just that color. She's washed out. The reason I showed you that picture is because in the winter, the males look like the females in the summer. And the females are simply devoid of any color at all. And so in the winter, if you see this bird at your feeder, well, you've got a female goldfinch, which again is hard to tell apart from the sparrows.
Can we do some Q&A before we end up out of time?
You bet.
I guess we're going to have a bunch of questions.
Yeah. Well, anytime, yeah.
Purple mark.
Well, yeah.
Used to get them, and this year none.
Oh, they're here, yeah. If you go up to Sunny Hill, Sunny Hill's got a bunch of purple martin houses out front, and they're populated. They also have some of the gourd houses for the purple martins. So yeah, I've seen them there in front of Sunny Hill. But they're really peculiar about where they decide to live. The purple martins. Yeah.
What were the birds that used to go into big lines and they used to see thousands of them? And when we were younger, Kate used to see those. You don't see them so much anymore. You know, they had just huge, go on for miles.
Well, you maybe, I don't know if you're talking about those flocks of blackbirds in the winter.
Yeah.
They estimate 500,000 birds in a single flock. That's a lot of birds. That's a lot of birds. And that's a mixed flock of black birds. So there'll be grackles and several species of blackbirds. They say the primary species is red-winged blackbird.
I saw it's a very small, solid yellow bird in my
Okay.
backyard. You know what that would do?
There's several birds that are predominantly yellow. There's one called a yellow warbler. And again, it's a sparrow-sized bird. It has rust streaks on its breast, but it's an all-over yellow bird. And they're really striking birds. Those are those warblers that they just pass through. They breed in the tropics. They fly all the way to Canada. No, they don't breed in the tropics. They winter in the tropics. They fly all the way to Canada, thousands of miles. Breed, raise a clutch of birds, fly back. It's amazing. There's one bird it's a shorebird that they estimate flies 13,000 miles a year from north to south. It's nuts. Really, really nuts. There are a lot of predominantly yellow birds, and it might have been a goldfinch. Very easy. Look and see if there's black on the wings, because they're little birds now. They're only about this big. You're looking out at your feeders and you think you see a goldfinch, and it looks like that. This is a pine siskin. And they're northern birds, and the only reason they would be here is if the food source that they normally have up north is exhausted. And a couple of years ago, I had pine siskins at my feeder. And the only reason I knew it was because somebody had told me to be on the lookout for them. And you can see that they're very, very similar. But if you look a second time, then you realize, oh, that's not a goldfinch. What is that?
Is there any significance between half the birds I see are walking and half of them are hopping? Is there any significance between this and hopping?
I'm an advanced beginner. I can't answer that. You need to ask an ornithologist. And then there's some birds that are almost never on the ground. You know, swallows very rarely touch the ground. You know, but they don't have any reason to. And then robins only fly to roost or to escape danger. So they're not very good flyers. They're not built to fly. Then,
This spring, I had a bird in on the side of my house.
yeah.
And every time you go outside, he would act like hurt, make a big deal about you being around.
Okay.
What was that?
Well, there's several birds adopt that behavior, but there's probably a killdeer. I could show you, let me show you a picture of it after a while, and we'll see. That's a real, killdeer are common here. They're shorebirds. So there was one nested in the Lowe's parking lot this spring. Raised a clutch of birds in the Lowe's, in the lava rock, you know, on the island. Yeah, there's whooping. Observed that bird several times. It's not there anymore because I went back to check. And yeah. What other questions do you have?
Leon, do you get excited about the red bird or the red hawks?
Oh yeah. I didn't get to it, but there's some birds that soar overhead. There's little birds that you'll see overhead, and then of course the big predator birds. Yeah. If you the red-tailed hawks are pretty easy to identify if they have a red tail, and many of them don't. And that clouds the ID, and you just go on size and shape is about all you have. But there's some other hawks. Just this week I got a lifer for them. That's one that I'd never seen before. It's called a broadwing hawk. Really pretty bird. And its tail, the red-tailed hawk has got a squared-off tail, but this bird had a rounded tail. And I saw it in my binoculars. I'm like, oh, that's not a red tail. What is that? And I got to looking, and I look at my guide, and I look again, I look at my guide, and it was cooperative. It stayed in the air long enough for me to get a good look at it. And it was a broadwing hawk, and I'd never seen one before.
Territorial was.
Yeah, he said they're territorial. Yeah, all birds are. All birds are territorial, and then you'll see cardinals males fighting each other. The wrens are really get after each other to occupy this particular territory.
How similar is a red-tailed hawk in, just visual comparison with like juvenile eagles?
Very similar, very similar. And it's just a matter of size. And we were down, we go to Cape Rock Park a lot and look out over the river. And when the sandbars were out there, you saw all kinds of interesting birds out there. But we were coming back into town, and we saw this big bird soaring over the casino, pulled into the parking lot. And it took a while, but we identified that as a juvenile bald eagle. And it looked like a hawk, except it was just too big. Hawks don't get that big. And eagles are huge. We're talking bigger wingspan than this. This is a 6-foot wingspan. And they have a 7-foot wingspan. That's a big bird. That's a really, really big bird. Imagine the power it takes to lift that bird off the ground. And these are big birds. So, but yeah, and some of these, like an adult bald eagle, to see that white head and tail, it's got to be 4 or 5 years old. So a 4-year-old eagle looks different than a 3-year-old eagle, which is different than a 2-year-old, they change. And then some of the identifications are really complicated. Oh, it's an eagle, I think, you know, I don't, based on size. And there's a species called a golden eagle. It's an entirely different species of birds. We don't have many of them here, but they are here once in a while. And to tell a golden eagle from a juvenile bald eagle is really, really hard.
The reason I asked, the Missourian put a picture up online on Facebook that showed of an eagle, and then immediately people were like, oh, it's a red-tailed hawk, red-tailed hawk. And I saw it was on Lexington between Sherwood and Perryville, where that little dip down is. It was perched on that concrete culvert, and it was big. And so I was like, yeah, I don't know what it was.
It could easily be a juvenile eagle, yeah. And that's why I still define myself as an advanced beginner, because you really got to know birds. And there are some folks that can tell, you know, just from the sound of the bird, whether it's a male or a female, just from the sound. And I can't even tell what species it is, much less if it's a male or a female. And that really takes a lot of experience, a lot of study, and really, really good ears. And I'm not there yet. I don't know if I'll ever be. So it's a good hobby, and it's 5 after 1, and I know that I've had empty chairs get up and leave on me before, so I won't be surprised if some of you all do. But I hope you get a sense for my enthusiasm for this, and maybe I can come back another day and we can do the predator birds or the swallows, because they're fun to look at. Fun to see. All right, thanks, guys.